All right, so this next video is going to be covering the passing pose. The passing pose is where the one foot passes the other. The feet are kind of the most underneath the body. It's not the highest or the lowest point. It's actually like kind of in the middle-ish, slightly higher than the contact pose, but it's not the up pose. It's not the down pose. So, all right, we're going to go halfway in between 1 and 15, which I believe is somewhere around here, 8. And let's see what we're going to do. I'm actually going to just select everything and place a key on it all so I can find it in my graph editor pretty easily. But this is a lot the same as the two contact poses, right? We do one and then we copy and paste some things and make some changes and then do the other. So let's go. I know for one thing that if this, it's easy to think of it like this. This is the foot we landed on, which means this is the foot I'm going to drag underneath the character first. I'm going to bring that back down to 0. And take care of that. I'm also going to do this. So they're going to be on this foot. They're not going to be up on the toe. They're just going to be on the foot. And then how do I want this character's foot to pass? How do I want this to happen? Now, in a cartoonishy situation, that might involve a little bit more like, stuff. But for this situation, there we go. That's why it looked funny. We maybe don't have to do as much. Actually, I wonder. I'm trying to think to myself as I roll my foot off the ground and then. Oh, good. I didn't key the other foot. That's good. Go me. How do I want to handle that? Let's bring this back. Zero that out. Oh, I know why that happened. I tend to be in the numbers and then I forget to, like hit S when I'm actually out here. Because if you hit S when you're in one of these numbers, it doesn't work. One thing I can do on rotations is kind of zero some of these out a little bit. Not the hips, but these middle of the back ones, right? Because these are being used for a whole bunch of rocking back and forth. And I very incorrectly do not have any forwards or backwards motion on them, and I should probably take care of that. But sometimes starting from scratch is a little bit better. So I'm going to just... Let us see. That just leaves... Yeah. Now that doesn't mean to say that these should be straight on when we actually animate it, but zeroing it out can help us. There we go. Figure out where the pose should go next. So if this is my passing pose, I've got the foot underneath here. Probably want this up a little bit further. And I also want this on the translate X closer to 0 because the passing pose is where it's gonna. No, I lied. I so lied. I want it more on this foot, right? Because that you're literally on the foot. There we go. And seems about it. In terms of the shoulders, we're gonna relax these down a little bit. The passing pose is the hardest one to get to look like anything that isn't terrible, because it's boring. It's for lack of a better word. How do we see the hands? Now, one of the things we can do is recognize that the hands trail the legs a little bit. So really, and then the wrists trail the hands. So this wrist can be up like this a little bit. There we go. And I can, something like that. A little bit of secondary overlapping action going on. And then I keep bringing myself back to this leg and like, how do I want my passing pose to go? How much of a lot of this will probably come down to how it looks when I actually like, see it in motion. And one of the things I notice is, right now, this isn't going to look right because it's missing the down pose where the arms are further apart. So what you see happening is, see that forward arm, this arm, the arm closer to us? It's bent and then it's like it straightens and it just goes right into that straighter pose. That's not what's going to happen though. In between here and here, there's going to be another pose where it's further back, so it's going to be swinging. So at this point in the game, it is a little bit difficult to figure out like what's going on. But still, I can watch it. Let's see. I can mostly pay attention to the legs. And I can ask myself, why on earth would he start leaning forward if he wasn't leaning forward before? Which means a couple of things. It means I'm putting that back where it was, and it also means sliding the foot back just a scoosh, which also means putting this back down. There we go. Yeah, I want that to be consistent. Even if there's no like swing on the other axes, I want him to be like leaning backwards a little bit. But that's about as far as I'm going to go with that for now. And then I come over here. Oh, I grab this. And then I think to myself, 15 plus 8 is maybe 23, 22. 15 plus 7. 15 plus 8. Or sorry, 8 minus 1 is 1 doesn't count is 7. So yes, it would be 15 plus 7 is 22. And then we hit F. There we go. And so now we need to do our little reversal shtick, which I'm going to pause for so you don't have to watch me do that. So stand by. Something to keep in mind as you're doing this, not everything gets reversed. So when I went from one foot to the other, the translate Y was not reversed because up is always positive numbers regardless of what limb you're on. The Z was reversed because that's the forwards and backwards, and those are reversed on this particular rig. Shame on the rig maker. And then the rotate X was, I believe, also not reversed. Right. So the rotates are not reversed, but that one translate Z is. So that's something I had to deal with for that. And then for this one, I actually just zero these things out, and then I believe it's the translate Z. Gets just a little bit of a 362. Yep. And there you have it there. So whenever you're reversing these things, there will be some things that you reverse the numbers on and some things that you don't. For example, I'm not going to, let's see, the rotate X will get reversed in terms of, just kidding, that's the one that doesn't. That's the leaning backwards, so that's going to stay the same. The translate Y will not get changed at all because that's the up and down. And then the translate X is the one that gets reversed because that's deciding which side he's leaning to. And then anything else, I believe these are all 0. Eventually I would make these not 0. All right, so I'm going to pause it again just so I can reverse some of these rotations for the arms. But again, remember that the rotate Z should not get reversed because that is just bringing the arm down, whereas the the rotate Y may end up reversed. It depends on which joint it is. Also, I want to point out that when you're changing these things, you can hit tab to go through a series of numbers. So if you've got, two different shoulder things and you need to go through there and start typing them, you can type in a number, and then you can type in another number, and then you can go ahead. Also, don't feel like you have to type in these exact, ridiculous numbers, at least not at first. If you're dealing with a number, this one I have to reverse. Oh, no, I don't. Oops, sorry. If you're dealing with a number that is, that's like 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, that's not something you have to have the 0.246 on, right? You can just you can just type in the whole numbers. It's not going to hurt anything. Write down just the whole numbers. Eventually, you might tweak things like by really tiny amounts, but by then your two sides will not be matching, so it won't matter as much. But for right now, whole numbers or like 0.5, something like that, that will be fine. You won't have to worry about that. There we go. So let us see what this looks like now. And again, the arms are going to be a little bit funny because the extremes for the arms do not exist yet. There we go. Starting to look like a walk cycle. Needs a lot of work, but it is starting to look like one. All right, so that's the passing pose. The passing pose is, if we go back to it, excuse me, is the one where the feet are passing each other. It's where the body is relatively straight up. This leg is relatively straight, the leg that the weight is on. The arms are also passing the body. It's the boringest pose. It's the pose that's hardest to get anything useful out of in terms of a silhouette value. If we look at our Richard Williamsy stuff over here, right? This is not easy because it's just there. But it is, still important, and we still want to be engaging the back in certain ways as much as we can.